So this is a quick video on feedback. Thank you very much, Fiona, for the question. The question is, how do you take feedback and not make it personal? I've taken too much feedback and translated it into changes that I didn't want to make. How do we accept feedback but not take it personally? What mechanisms does your business use? I've got a number of thoughts on this, and I'm going to go through them now. So the first one is that it took me a long time to get this, but once I got it, it kind of changed everything about feedback for me. And what I realized was that feedback is a currency. And feedback is actually something that other people gift to you. And it's actually a currency that you are receiving when someone is gifting that to you. And so when someone gives you feedback, there is an opportunity for you to actually receive benefit. Now, it depends exactly how that's delivered, whether or not it feels nice, and it depends what you make it mean about yourself as to how it feels to receive it as well. And I'm going to cover some of the more practical things in a moment. But acknowledging that when someone goes to the trouble of giving you feedback, whether that's via a feedback form, whether that's via a customer service, satisfaction, thumbs up or thumbs down, whether that's someone sending you an email and saying, hey, your team aren't getting this right and I'm not happy with the service or the product that's been delivered, they are going out of their way to share that with you, and that actually costs them. It costs them time and it costs them effort. And so they have to care about you enough to share that feedback with you. And so they actually care about you when they're going through the motion of giving you feedback, because if they didn't give a shit about you, they would just take their money elsewhere. They would what's called vote with their wallet, and they just wouldn't bother. You would just notice that they stopped buying products from you, or they disengaged from your program or your service, or you just didn't hear from them anymore. And so the fact that someone has gone to the trouble of giving you feedback, to me, once I realized that, I was like, wow, oh my God, this person cares about me enough to give me feedback. The people I worry about are the people that when I ask them for feedback, they're silent, because to me that means, oh wow, this person might be completely disengaged, or they might be completely unhappy and they don't quite have the words to share what could potentially be improved. So rule number one is to see and acknowledge feedback as a gift that you're receiving, and to know that just by that person giving you feedback, they're actually gifting you something and they give a shit about you enough to give you that feedback. Okay, so now let's get on to some of the practicals of actually receiving feedback and how you can take the sting out of it. Because when someone says, hey, you're not doing a great job at X, there is absolutely sting in that, and everyone's going to feel that. I once had a product that I was looking for feedback on from customers, and I sent out the survey, and the average response was like 2 or 3 out of 10, and that just absolutely sucked. It was a complete dick punch. And so here's some ways that you can manage that and try and have it land a little softer when it lands with you. So the first one is to aggregate the data of the feedback that you're receiving. And so as you deliver to customers or students or anyone who's in your program or your service or someone receiving your product, you're probably going to have a lot of feedback that can come from multiple sources. Ideally, you want to look at the feedback in aggregate data. If you're having a bad day, or you're tired, or you're hungover, or for whatever reason you're already a little bit down, and someone sends you some feedback, in itself, that feedback can really sting. It can really hurt. And it's kind of like going to a cafe and ordering a sandwich, and they make you a shit sandwich. And if it's the first time you've been to that cafe, then you're gonna paint that as a poor experience, and you're gonna paint that as a bad cafe because 100% of your experience is poor. And so if you're just going about your day, reading your emails, managing your business, managing your team, and you receive one piece of feedback saying, hey, you're doing a shitty job, well, then the only bit of feedback you've received that day is that you're doing a shitty job. And so you might paint the picture that everything I'm doing is a shitty job because that's the only feedback you've received on that day. But if you were to send a survey to customers and you got, let's say, an average of 6 or 7 or 8 out of 10 across the board, and 1 or 2 of them might be 10, absolute raving fans who love you, and 1 or 2 of them might give you a 2 or a 3 and say, oh, you know what, you're doing an absolute terrible job for me, I'm really not enjoying this at all. when you look at the aggregate data, if the average is 6 or 7, you can look at that and go, hey, well, you know what? The average is 6 or 7. Here's one person that I need to focus on helping, but overall, I'm not doing a shit job. It's not a shit cafe. So if you go to a cafe and you've been there 4 or 5 times, you've always had a great sandwich, and then on the 5th time, they give you a shit sandwich, well, that's only 20% of the data set. And so that's going to make it easier for you. So if possible, look at the data in aggregate, and if possible, have your team be the initial cushion for feedback data, because your staff are less likely to take feedback personally. They're not the personal identity of the business. They're not the founder of the business. They don't have their name on the door. So they're just going to see feedback as an upset customer rather than seeing it as a reflection of who you are as a person or reflection of what your business is overall. So that's a nice segue into my next point, which is to separate identity from action. Separating identity from action means that if I've delivered a poor service to someone, it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. That's identity. I'm a bad person is identity. I've delivered a poor process, or I've delivered a poor product, or I've delivered a poor training program, or I've, or this customer was not happy with their experience. That is an action, whereas I am a bad person or I have a bad business is an identity. You want to keep those two things separate, because you can have a good business and deliver a shit product. You could have a shit business and deliver a good product. Those two are separate things. And the issue or the challenge that we have is, as entrepreneur founders, quite often the business and our personal identity are very closely intertwined and interlinked together. And that's just the reality. We're probably not ever going to be able to, completely release ourselves from that, because the business is so deeply intrinsically linked to our values, to our passions, and to what we want to create in the world. But what we can do is we can separate the identity from the action. Okay, I delivered really poorly there, or the actions of the business were really poor there, but it doesn't mean the business has to be defined poorly by that one instance. That's an important one. Okay, next up, separate art from desire. Separate art from desire. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I might go to a movie and take my friend to see the movie with me, and we might walk out at the end of the movie, and I might really love the movie and think it was the best one I've ever seen, and my friend might say, oh my God, that was a piece of shit. I hated that, right? Same movie. Two people can have the same experience, receive the same product, and have very different ideals about whether or not it was valuable to them, because values and experience are on a personal and individual basis. And so, if you think about your customers or anyone receiving your product or your service, they're going to have different values. They're going to have different things that are meaningful and important to them. They're going to have different experiences in how you deliver. That is up to them and up to their desires and up to them to receive based on their unique makeup in the universe and the world, how they receive your product or your service. And so, if they are someone who just happens to not see value in what you're delivering, maybe it's more about them than it is about what you're delivering, because it's just a matter of their value system not aligning to what you are delivering. And that's absolutely fine. I would use an example of me delivering IT services. When I was consulting to customers, some customers really wanted to have a personalized experience where I was in the room with them. They valued seeing someone face to face. They probably valued the human connection of having a conversation with someone, coming to their house and helping support them with removing a virus or whatever I was doing for their computer. Other customers of mine were very happy for me to work remotely because I was just getting the job done and they didn't really need any of the chit chat. Just based on their makeup, they were happy to just have the functional task completed. And you probably noticed there are some people in our mentorship group, in the OnTrack group, who have different desires and different levels of engagement with what we do here in the group. Some people are super active on posting inside our members chat room. Some people are more lurkers. Some people are super active on the calls. Some people only come to the calls every now and again. Everyone has different levels of desire and everyone has different levels of value that they receive. So don't expect that everybody is going to be like you, number one, but also don't expect everyone is going to be the same. Give people the opportunity to have their uniqueness in what they receive value for. Some people are just not going to be a fit for you and just not going to be a fit for your business. Just like a relationship, sometimes there is just an incompatibility. And you don't have to expect that every single person is going to be a good fit. Some people are not going to be a good fit for you, and that's absolutely fine. Now, one of the things that you mentioned here in your question, Fiona, is that I have changed myself into changes that I didn't want to make after receiving feedback. And that is one to be very, very careful of. If you're trying to contort yourself to be everybody's, valuable to everybody, then you're going to please nobody. Because if you're trying to please everyone, everybody is so diverse, you're not going to be able to please anyone at all. And a good example of this was Guy Sebastian, Australian singer, if you don't know who that is. During the pandemic, plenty of celebrities were encouraging people to go and get vaccinated. And Guy Sebastian started posting on his social media, hey, everyone, you should go and get vaccinated. This is a great idea. A certain portion of his audience said, hey, yeah, thanks very much for, using your profile to help get people vaccinated. And then another portion of his audience said, oh my God, that's terrible. How dare you tell people what to do with their bodies? You should butt out, you're a musician. And he actually switched his perspective. And he said, oh, you know what, actually, everyone, it's your body, you do what you want. I'm not going to encourage you to go and get vaccinated. You should do what works best for you. And then the first half of his audience, who were initially on board with what he was sharing publicly, then turned on him and they said, hey, hold on, you were initially supporting people to go get vaccinated, and now you've gone and turned on your head. And then he flip-flopped again. He went back to saying, you know what, guys, actually, you should really go and get vaccinated. That's a good idea. And what he created was, instead of being a support and an ally to his audience, was he created everybody in his audience upset with him because he didn't stand for something that was important to him. He was wish-washy and back and forward, and all he ended up was everybody angry with him. So if you try and please everyone, you'll potentially end up with everyone just being angry with you. The solution to that is to, deep down within yourself, find out what is true to you. And the quote that I use for that is, in this moment, if I truly love myself, what will I do? In this moment, if I truly care for myself, what is right for me? Once I answer those questions, I've got a good idea of what is right for Pete. And then I understand that that's not going to have everybody in my life happy with me. That's not going to suit every single customer of mine, but that's okay. I know that I'm going to be more in line with serving the people who are aligned to me based on me being firm with my values. Cool. So finally, I would just want to say that feedback is a gift. Just remember that receiving feedback is a gift and an opportunity to improve. If you have a growth mindset and you're someone who is looking to strive to do better, looking to improve the way that you're delivering to your customers giving you feedback is all data for you to do a better job in the service of everyone. So see feedback as a gift. Yes, it's going to have that emotional sharpness when you receive it. And, even when I put a survey out and 9 out of 10 people say that it was fantastic, but there's 1 or 2 people who say, no, I'm not having a wonderful experience. Yeah, sure, there's still that little bit of a sting for a couple of moments, but viewed in aggregate of how I'm doing right across the business and the feedback that we get from customers across what we're doing, it is, in the most part seen as a gift for me, and it feels pretty good to receive it. Okay, hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope it was useful.